Well, our next speaker, I must admit, I'm a fairly mainstream guy. I might be the most mainstream person in this room. And I had not heard of Jihan Wu until maybe a year ago when there was just a lot of kerfluffle, I'd say, on Twitter. And I do a lot of my Bitcoining on Twitter, not under my own account name. But I'm not a troll. I just want to make that straight. There are a few people who are very kind, open to all ideas, who don't use their real name when they're on Twitter that much. But anyway, Jihan Wu, and I think I proved a few of you wrong because I just pronounced it wrong. Jihan Wu, we had a little bit of a back and forth on that. I mean, he's done, I don't know if there's anyone who's accomplished more in Bitcoin in the past few years. Being the first person in China to translate the Satoshi white paper into Chinese, one of the earliest Bitcoin enthusiasts, I guess, in China, and perhaps one of the most successful, powerful. It's hard to deny everything that Jihan has accomplished, and I'm really excited to hear him speak. Jihan, if you would take the stage with our keynote. On here.
Okay. Okay, it's more convenient. Okay, it's nice to see you guys here. And my topic today is about why multiple implementations is quite important for Bitcoin. More than 2,000 years ago, Aristotle argued that there were more than 6 ways of how society can be organized. That is called monarchy and aristocracy, policy, tyranny, oligarchy, and democracy. And in open source software management, that we can see usually we can find 2 ways of management. The first one is we call it benevolent dictatorship. The other one we call it kind of a design committee. Benevolent dictatorship is the most frequently seen ones. That usually the dictator or the founder of the project, or the ones who have contributed the most significantly to the project. He knows the project very well and he contributed the most. His skills is well recognized. He knows everyone in the project who contributed, and everyone knows him. Maybe like Linux is the most famous dictator, right? And in most of the cases, it's functioning very well. Design committee is quite rare, actually. And usually, when open source become kind of design committee, it does not functioning very well. One question is that why we cannot see other 4 ways of organize as Aristotle described. I think it's because democracy is not possible in open source software, because developer software is quite a very complicated intellectual activity, and who is good, who is bad is most times is obvious, and you cannot just vote. Doing some kind of political vote to decide which way the software is going to go. And tyranny, it's not because there is lack of enforcement there. So if you want to seek for the benefit in a tyranny, maybe it's not open source software. It's like a Microsoft, it's Windows, it's Office, right? We can maybe say this kind of tyranny. Maybe that's why Microsoft is widely hated in the open source software community. Another question we want to ask is why benevolent dictatorship is so common in the open source software. I think it's about human nature. It's about the complication of the software development. Which one, just like Steve Jobs says, that a very good software engineer is 100 times better than an average one. So there is no democracy here, that if you are good, if you contribute the most, everyone knows about it. If you look at the GitHub for most of the open source software, and you can all see that the number 1 contributors is far more contribute far more better and much more than the other contributors. So it's just a natural process that there will be a dictator there. And we also have to notice that there is another tendency in human nature, that is obedience to authority. In 1961, in Yale University, there is a kind of experiment called a Milgram experiment. That the study showed that a very, very strong willingness for human beings to obey the orders without just contradicted to their consciousness. And we also have to pay attention to another cognitive bias existed called halo effects. Because people's judgment over certain things are highly influenced by the past behavior of the entity without just understanding 100% perfect about the fact itself. So if there is a kind of very significant contributor in a project, if this contributor make a judgment because of halo effect, lots of the other contributors or the other members in this project are very likely to follow. And we know that there's also have a kind of a bandwagon effects in the social dynamics. That if there is an experiment that in a group discussion that the experiments ask the participants to tell which pen is longer. It's obvious that pen A is longer, but just you need everyone to say that pen B is longer. It's just a lie. But the only one left in the room just don't dare to say the truth. You just follow the other people. So this effect is very strong. That if you are the very lonely person to hold one opinion, even if the opinion is true, it's very, very pressure for you to speak out. But it's also very interesting that if there is only one companion that standing besides you, that this person will be much more brave to speak out. So if you really want to control the mind of people, the censorship is required. You just shut everyone up. So everyone feels that he's lonely. And we need to pay attention that the software development is a very pressure and highly complicated intellectual activity. And most of the time, the contributors don't have direct economic incentives. He contribute for fun. He contribute for kind of let himself feeling good. It's a voluntary. But if he contribute with kind of a possibility that he will be attacked, he will be face lots of political pressure, and everyone believes him he's doing wrong, most likely this one will quit. He will not continue to fight for this project. So I think giving all these kind of effects, I think it's very natural that an open source software will be most likely organized in a kind of a dictatorship way. Actually, there is nothing to blame, and in most of the time, it's fine. Because this is the most effective way that giving our human nature. Maybe the dictator is usually in open source software will advise that the leader, the lead maintainer, that it be humble and humorous, and he will be nice to people. He will manage the order of the whole software development. But if he's doing something wrong, it's not unacceptable, because there are so many software in the world, and there is no perfect piece of software, and people just can use our software. If we look at the case of Bitcoin, Bitcoin was founded by Satoshi, and then the lead maintainer position was transferred to Gavin Anderson. Satoshi was definitely was a dictator, and he had made lots of code changes into the code base without much discussion. For example, the 1 megabyte block size limit, he might have discussed with like 2 person. Then he just added into the code base, and maybe 1 year or later, and Jeff Gazik found it out and started to discuss it. Then when Gavin became the lead maintainer, the transition to the design committee begins, because Gavin Anderson at that time, he worried about maybe he will be hit by a boss, so he gave the committee access to a few other people, and from then all the changes have been seriously discussed in the community, and everyone is very conservative. So right now, I think we can safely judge that Bitcoin Core is governed by a design committee. And another phenomenon we need to pay attention that in open source software, that usually there is a very clear ownership about a software project. This is somehow contradictory to the instinct, because since the code is open source, everyone can fork the code away, everyone can copy it, everyone can use it, it's free. But in the common law of the open source community, there is definitely kind of ownership that if you fork away the code and you add some patch and release a binary without the consent of the original founder or the existing everyone recognized as owner's consent, this will be called a kind of a rock patch, that you're still the project. People will still blame you. Everyone will just point a finger at you. So in common practice, there is a very strong practice that open source software will have kind of ownership. So who is owning the Bitcoin Core right now? Usually people, lots of Davis arguments was, oh, Bitcoin Core is not existed. Right? Have you heard about that? But it's a joke. Bitcoin Core does exist, and everyone knows exactly who are those committee members of Bitcoin Core, right? Maybe they have kind of hierarchy inside of the committee, but the ownership is quite clear. That this software project is owned by some people in this world. It's not owned by everyone. It's owned by a small group of people. So we need to think about this. If Bitcoin is just a kind of software, it will be just fine that this software have kind of ownership. It's owned by even one person. It's okay. If you don't like it, you just don't use it. If you don't like Microsoft's Office, that's fine. You just change to some open source. In Linux, we have lots of Office software as well. You can choose Google Docs. But it seems that the Bitcoin is not owning a software. Because if you don't like the 1 megabyte block size, you can just choose another piece of software, like Dash, right? It's going to create a 400 megabyte block, right? It's pretty good. And why everyone troubles themselves creating like RBTC or forum.bitcoin.com and to try to fight and to increase block size? I think that Bitcoin is kind of social agreement that established since 2008. That everyone signed up on with Bitcoin with kind of agreement. The most well-known terms would be the 21 million coin cap. And there were also lots of trolls on the internet in 2011 when was first met with the Bitcoin concept, and when argued with everyone else, says, oh, there is a kind of 1 megabyte that most likely can process like 7 transactions per second. It is not going to be a very good payment network or good monetary tools. And I always argue that Satoshi have established the roadmap that the block size can be increased someday, that it is required. So such kind of arrangement is kind of agreement that existed in the mind of everyone who have been invested, buying or holding Bitcoin. So it's not a kind of a thing that could be a trade-off of software engineering. It's not a kind of feature that you can choose to have or not to have. It's not technical. It's a kind of a social agreement. Peter Todd used to say that, oh, the 21 million coin cap is just kind of a technical arrangement. No, it's not. It's kind of social agreement. It's unchangeable. If you are change it, you are basically violate a kind of agreement. However, that because we found a problem here that since this whole argument started like 4 years ago, people find that from the beginning there is a strong incentive in the community that we will want to choose the most best software implementation. Actually, that Bitcoin Core. And for a very long time, and I think today is most likely still the case, that the Bitcoin Core is still the only widely recognized software implementation. If we consider Bitcoin as kind of social agreement, that the implementation is just like a kind of a contract on paper. There is only one lawyer in the world that can draft the contract for everyone, for participants. And later you found that the lawyer starts to manipulate the terms in the contract for some weird reasons. And everyone thinks that, oh, this is not true, right? This is a little bit against the original arrangements. But because going through the legal training or the whole legal system is too complicated, and you still have to rely on the lawyer, and he start to change the term, and you have nothing to do, and you have to accept. Maybe that's what we are facing right now. I think we need to encourage multiple implementations so that we don't have to be hijacked by the monopoly implementations in the world. I think if that we have been promoted the multiple implementations earlier, that at least some of the managers I know in China will have been more comfortable to switch to big block roadmap. That will make everyone feel more comfortable to switch to software. And I think we need to encourage multiple implementations because it will help Bitcoin to bring new innovations. I think today Bitcoin have missed at least one very important innovations in the world, that is smart contract. Smart contract, when smart contract was introduced, I recognized it's very important. I was a very early investor of basic manner, and I traded stocks on glbsc.com. And how many of you have know about glbsc.com? Okay, it's very few. It's very early. It's basically it's kind of centralized stock exchange that are using Bitcoin as kind of currency. Other time, someday maybe the UK security regulators just locked the door of the GLBSC creator, and the creator was kind of freaked, and he just shut the site down, and everyone was in a chaos because the capital table of the company, the virtual company, on that website just become unknown. No one knows about. No one can make sure or can prove that he owns certain shares of a certain company. So, if we can have a kind of a decentralized capital table for the companies, it will be great, right? So from the beginning, I think that the smart contract can do those things, and it has been evident that the ERC20 protocol has been widely used in the ICOs. The ICO I know is right now is quite crazy and lots of scam. I think lots of people are going to lose money. But definitely, if you want to create a kind of a decentralized economy that everyone is, at least you want to allow those entrepreneurs to raise money from the public without regulations. I think such kind of protocol and innovation is quite important. The smart contract actually is very hard to do anything that is meaningful because the coding and the security is very troublesome. Maybe a very simple features will spend like months of time of engineering. But anyway, it's very, very important innovations. Bitmain started to invest into those stock in 2015. As a community, we have to admit that Bitcoin is a little bit late for this innovation. One post in RBTC today quoted Nokia CEO's presentation that Nokia has done nothing wrong, but Nokia failed. I think that Bitcoin, if cannot catch up the most important innovations in the cryptocurrency, maybe we will end up the same situation. That Bitcoin maybe do nothing wrong. 1 megabyte is nothing wrong, right? But it just failed. I think another innovation we are being missing, or it's we are being missing right now, is kind of economic incentives about the inflation reward distributions. One very important competing blockchain just redistribute the miners reward to long-term coin holders and the full node operationers, because this kind of model will incentive everyone to store the coins in the long term and to make judgment about the technical improvements for the long term and to contribute to the community. So such kind of innovations has been adopted by Ethereum, and but I just see lots of Bitcoiners in this community just been trash these ideas, and it's bad, it's a scam, it's that is okay. Today I will leave my word here that this is very important innovations, and we will see how powerful such kind of arrangement for this innovation. If we just have kind of monoculture of the implementation, all these kind of new things will be trashed because you don't have a perfect solutions. Every innovation has its problems, and every new idea is being trashed, it's been rejected. That will be quite risky for Bitcoin in the future. I think that implementation want to be successful, I think should go through several important steps. First, it should be running as a full node without mining, that it can catch up and following the right consensus rules, the right chains, which means that you don't accidentally introduce consensus rule change to your software. Maybe accident, such kind of, you can call it a UASF or UHF, whatever, but you don't want to accidentally create such kind of bug that to fork yourself away and just to leave the main chain. And if you can finish this, then another important step that your implementation will be able to create new blocks, can extend the blockchain. That is quite an important step. Because lots of software have a difficulty in that step. And I think the next very milestone for implementation is that it will be able to bring improvements to the protocol and bring innovations to the protocol, and it will be able to convince the community to upgrade and to accept the innovations and to help the community to grow. That will be a very important milestone. Lots of innovations in the protocol actually is very aggressive. It will have the potential risk to damage the protocol as a whole. So how we can introduce innovation safely? I think extension block can be used as kind of a general framework to bring into innovation. Extension block is kind of very special sidechain. It's a special sidechain that requires all full nodes and many nodes to verify the consensus rules in the extension block. So some aggressive innovations like a smart contract, like a Mimblewimble, or like Lumino can be included in the extension block. If something goes wrong, the largest risk we can take is maybe the extension block goes wrong, but it's voluntary, and it's just someone who dared to take the risk to use the extension block transactions to bear a risk. You don't have to ask everyone in the ecosystem to bear a risk of extension block. And I think that we should construct a way for the software implementations to find its business model. Kind of volunteering or self-establishment is quite good, it's quite important in the open source software. But we really want such kind of protocol implementations have its public way to say that I'm going to earn money this way, and they don't need to hide their business plan and left the whole community to create lots of conspiracy theory to say, oh, what their intention is. Like Rootstock. Rootstock reached kind of arrangement with miners that on Rootstock chain, that 20% of the gas revenue, basically its transaction fees, will be distributed to Rootstock Lab. This is a very public business plan, and investors invest into Rootstock for very good reasons. One day it will earn lots of money, and all the community will accept the fact that if you really bring something interesting to this protocol, that it's just natural to have kind of a revenue for your innovations. So the protocol developers don't have to be very confidential about their business plan. I think that's we can do. And we also know that Rootstock just raised money from private investors. And today there are lots of ICO. If you can really work out such kind of a greater proposal that have potential to be adopted by the whole community and being widely used, maybe there are more decentralized ways like ICO to raise money to fund your development. When we say that we want to encourage multiple implementations, I'm not saying that every implementations in the ecosystem will be very successful. I think it must be the opposite, that most of the initiative will fail. Only those ones with very good code quality, very developer friendly, and a very clear documentation, and a very good communication software implementations will be very successful. And those ones, because the complication of a software implementation, the most ones will have very bad code, not a very good documentation, and maybe long of it, and maybe all those comments in the code is bad, and maybe lots of bugs in the code. It's quite easy to introduce bugs into the Bitcoin protocol implementations. Most of the software will fail. But anyway, we have to try to be a successful one. And I hope that we can make a very beautiful future of Bitcoin. Thank you.
All right, that was amazing. Great to hear from you, Jihan. And I can't believe the only name I had for Jihan was Jihan, and then people are saying, no, it's Jihan. Hi, hand. So I've been told that Jihan will be around to talk to personally. I don't know how.
Just a short one.
You okay with taking a question? Come on up.
Just a short question.
Okay.
Well, the 2 megabyte hard fork you want. Yeah, you clearly want.
Okay, hey, you know what? Before you ask a question, we've got this really fun thing to throw. And if you talk into the little black part.
You clearly want a 2 megabyte hard fork. I'm Roland Kreve from weuse.cash. You clearly want a 2 megabyte hard fork, that's clear. Do you really think that will solve the scaling issues? Because I think the blocks will be full in 3 months again. That's the first thing. Or is this fork just a way for the miners, a petty way for the miners to show that they are be able to force protocol changes to the community? That's my question.
Hello. I think the framework of your question is quite fair because you just give me like a binary choice whether I want to force to show that I want to force a change into a protocol or it can solve the problems or not. Basically, I think you mentioned some truths that 2 megabyte is not enough for the Bitcoin to embrace new users to adopt Bitcoin. But it's kind of very important step for the Bitcoin protocol to step forward to solve the emergency issues of the transaction congestions. I don't think that it's a manner forcing the 2 megabyte block size increase. I think that I want to go back to the history of the protocol upgrade a little bit. In 2015, Mana is quite passive about the Bitcoin protocol debate because I think it's kind of a technical things, it's engineering things. In Bitmain, we are an engineering company, and with the engineering always have different opinions on certain issues. It was going to be solved. That is our belief, so we don't care. We are waiting for the technical committee to reach kind of a consensus, and we learned about the consensus during this kind of debate. We think that's important. But it's somehow that Gavin Andresen and quite other important companies, very important ecosystem players start to fly to China and calling us, contacting us, want us to increase the block size. And we agree that we need to increase the block size. So it's kind of lots of economic players in this community want to increase block size together. It's not that manners want to force increase the block size. And I want to tell you is that actually there are lots of manners of small blockers. So blockchain is kind of a volunteering agreement between the economic participants that you just cannot force anyone to upgrade the block size, to increase block size, and you can also not force a group of people not increase block size. Okay, thank you.